All right, guys, so let's get started. So I hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, I mean, this is yesterday's recording that's been rendered. So it's gonna take another couple of minutes, and then once it is processed, I'll be uploading it soon. Okay, so let's get started. Let's see what we have discussed yesterday. Any questions before we get started?
Yes, Rahul, Sonia this side. Am I audible?
Yeah, Sonia, I can hear you.
Yeah, I have a doubt. I have a query in my mind actually. I want to know, like websites are getting update. I'm not very much sure. I just have a bit knowledge. Like websites are getting update with Angular and Node, JavaScript kind of applications are nowadays. So can Selenium support those websites automation as well?
Yes, Selenium does support like Angular application, React application as well. Just that we need to add some additional effort for the synchronization part. So we will be using some of the Angular application as well for automation, and you're gonna see that Selenium can easily automate. Although there are wrappers available, where that is like Protractor is there, ng WebDriver is there, which is originated from Selenium JavaScript library itself, specifically designed to automate these Angular application or React application. But through normal Selenium as well, we can automate it. It's not like we cannot automate it.
Okay, we need a wrapper, more support libraries we need.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Sure. So Satya has a question. What's the process to get all other courses as a lifetime access? So see, you can visit this particular page for the complete information. So this is like when you go to waytoautomation.com, you're going to see this lifetime membership, and you can see the complete details of what all courses, the online batch schedule that is running, and what all things that you'll be getting. And to enroll yourself, you can directly do it from this page itself. So I'll be sending you these information over the email after today's session. All right. Any more questions before we get started?
Rahul, Rajshri this side.
Yeah, Rajshri.
Yesterday you configured Selenium Server 4.0 in your project, right? So if I have n number of projects, for each project, do I have to configure separately for each project? Unlike we have JDK configured in my machine or Eclipse configured in my machine. Is it so that for every project I need to configure Selenium Server 4.0?
See, every project, as in the project that you're working on, you need to have that Selenium dependency, as in the Selenium jar file kept in that project. If this is like the project that we have created, Amex project, and I want to use Selenium in it, so I need to keep the Selenium library.
Okay.
Right. And if I create another project, that will be a fresh project. So I need to use Selenium classes in that. So I need to add that library again over there.
Okay. Again, download or just can we copy?
I mean, you have already downloaded it on your machine. You just need to import it.
Okay.
So how you import it? Just right click, go to build path, add external archive, select the jar file, click on open. That's it.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah. Any more questions? Okay, so in that case, we can get started. Let us do a little recap of what we discussed yesterday. So we have seen that Selenium, it's an open source library. There is no license required to work on Selenium. And the prerequisite is that you need to have JDK available and Eclipse available and the Selenium API. That is the Selenium jar file, right? If we are working on working with Java, so Selenium is available in a form of a jar file. If you use Selenium with C#, then you're going to get DLL file. If you use Ruby, then you're going to get gem file. If you use Python, Then there is a pip that you need to install for Python, and similarly for JavaScript and PHP, there are different bindings available. So same Selenium project is available in all major languages. Whichever language you are comfortable with, you just need to download its dependencies, and you just need to import it in your project and start using with that particular language. Right, so Java is very popular, right? Majorly openings are in Java itself, and the next popular language after Java is Python, and then C#, right? So these are the three most popular languages. You'll hardly see requirement for Selenium with Ruby or PHP, or JavaScript is getting popular as well these days, but with other automation tools like Cypress, Protractor, although Protractor is again going to be deprecated in 2022. But there are other JavaScript wrappers as well available. So people who are from the JavaScript background, they use Selenium with JavaScript as well. They use those wrappers, right? But yes, Java is very, very popular. And it's interesting as well and easy to understand as well. As compared to JavaScript, JavaScript is little tricky over Java. So I don't recommend right now to jump on multiple languages. Start with Java first, and once you are confident in one language, you can easily migrate your code to multiple languages, whichever language you want, right? The other thing that these are the versions that we discussed about Selenium, that it started with 1.0, and 1.0 contains IDE, RC, and grid. Now, what is IDE? IDE, you can see it is available in all versions. So IDE is basically a record and play plugin, to your browser. So if you go over here, you go to your browser, you're gonna find IDE, something like this. This is your Selenium IDE, a record and play tool, right? So if you click on, let's say, record a new test, give it a name, let's say Google project, and then you click on OK. Just type the URL that you want to navigate to. I want to navigate, let's say, google.com. Click on start recording. You'll see that Google is launched, and over here you'll see Selenium IDE is recording. And then type something, Selenium, click on this, click on any particular link, right? And then close this window. So you can see all the things are being recorded over here. You can see all the actions are being recorded. So from here, you can stop the test, give it a name as Google test. Just a moment. The recording is processed. Okay. Just yeah, give it a name as Google test. Click on OK. And then if you want to run the test again, simply you need to click on this, and you're going to see the test execution will going to take place. And it quit. So all the actions are completed. Right, this is what you call as a record and play. And normally what people do that once you are done with testing, what you do is you click over here to your test and you export this test. So export multiple languages. You can see if you want to export it in Java, click on export, and see a Java file will be downloaded. So click on save. And once I open this, you're going to find the same Java code over here. So this is the code that we started with yesterday, like driver.get for navigation. If you remember, over here, I've written the same code, driver.get. And this code is not at all complex that we need to do a record and play, and then we generate the code and then use it in Eclipse. If you are using Selenium IDE, then IDE has got very limited features, very limited functionality, right? If we talk about UFT, they have invested so much of their money on the record and play feature. So record and play of QTP, UFT is very powerful as compared to Selenium or other automation. But if we talk about Selenium, no one in the industry use Selenium IDE. Right, that's just an additional feature they have provided for record and play so that you can play around and get yourself familiarized with Selenium. But when we talk about project implementation, framework designing, and integrating other utilities like Maven, Jenkins, Log4j, and number of other utilities, then those things cannot be easily done using Selenium IDE. For that, you need to have something like a coding environment where either you're using Java or you're using Python. You can get all those utility integrated, integrate the Selenium test, and then form up a complete framework, or you can say it, a live project and then execute the test cases. Otherwise, if you are playing through this recording play, you cannot fully automate a website, right? Initial page, you should be able to do it, but if we talk about Selenium, if we talk about an actual project, Selenium is just 25% in your entire automation project. If we are talking about these functionalities, if we go back over here, if we talk about this ID, RC, grid, all these components, basically, these are only 25% used in your automation project. So if Selenium is 25%, then what other things are there that covers the 75% of the part? So what are those things? Anyone?
Java.
Java, yes. Major rule is of core Java.
Java, TestNG,
TestNG.
and Git.
Sorry?
Git repository, Git, Maven, then Jenkins,
Log4j,
reporter, extend report,
Apache POI.
extend report.
Anything else that you know? What all things can be integrated? So we have a mail API, we have
JDBC,
right? So these are the things that without using these things, you cannot build up a framework, right? Even if I go over here and if I execute this code, if I run this, let's say I'm going to add a couple of more steps over here. So when we navigate to waytoautomation.com website, I want to get the title of the page. So getting the title, it's a very simple method. You simply need to say driver.getTitle. That's it. This is going to get you the title of the website. But it is going to get the title. It is not going to print. Selenium task is not to print the title. That task is of core Java. So how to print in core Java? We do system out println. So we're going to do system.out.println like this. Right? And after this, I want to close the browser. So the method is driver.close, or you can even call driver.quit. So what is the difference in close and quit? Close is also going to close the window. Quit is also going to close the window. So if I run this, say it navigates and quit. And you can see the title is printed over here, right, from the web page. So what is the difference in close or quit?
Quit basically kills all the instances of a Selenium browser, and close actually closes just the one which is open.
Just the current window. So when we use driver.close, it is only going to close the current window. At times, if we have tabs, pop-ups open, a lot of other windows open in the same session, then if you use driver.close, wherever your focus is, it is going to close that window. If you're on the third window, you use driver.close, it is going to close third window only. It is not going to close all other windows. Whereas if you use quit, it is going to kill the entire session, closing all the open tabs, pop-ups, every window in that particular session only. It's not like it is going to quit or close already open windows. It is only going to close the windows which are in the current session. Right, so that is the difference in close and quit. Now, see, when I've executed this code, there might be a couple of test cases that I have executed. Right, one of the test case, let's say, verify user is able to navigate to waytoautomation.com. The other test case is verify the title of this page. Right, so let's say there are two test cases over here. So if we look at the console, are we getting any results like out of 2 test cases, 2 are pass, or let's say 1 is fail. Are we getting any pass or fail over here? We are not getting any such thing, right? Because Selenium task is not to report a failure or execute, not to convert this code to test cases or test suite. So if we talk about manual testing, what we do in manual testing, we do like if actual is equal to expected, then the test cases pass, otherwise the test cases fail, right? And when we execute all the test cases manually as well, at the end we have to report that how many test cases are executed, out of that how many are pass and how many are fail. Same thing we automate, right? We are automating our manual test cases itself. So if I completely automate this website, at the end, I should be able to know that, okay, I have executed 100 test cases, out of that 90 are pass and 10 are fail. And if 10 are fail, then what is the reason for the failure? So this task is not done by Selenium. Selenium task is not to convert your code to test cases or test suites. For that, you have to use another API, another framework, which you need to integrate to your project. And that is what is TestNG. So if we talk about TestNG, TestNG is a Java framework. TestNG, or you can, there's another library which you may have heard about, which is called as JUnit. JUnit is majorly used by developers. TestNG is used by testers, test engineers, automation testers. Right? So purpose of JUnit, TestNG, both are same, but TestNG is little advanced as compared to JUnit. So that's the reason in automation, majorly companies are using TestNG itself. And the purpose of TestNG is to convert your existing code into test cases or test suites and report how many test cases are executed and out of which how many are passed, how many are failed. If some is failed, then what is the reason for that failure? So what is TestNG? As I said, it's a Java framework. If we talk about Selenium, we were also calling Selenium as a framework. So framework is nothing, it's just the collection of pre-built classes where we have all the functionality available in a form of a jar file. Similar to that, if I talk about TestNG, TestNG is also a framework, a project. If you go over here, click on this, select this, and click on next, finish, you're gonna see TestNG jars are added to your project. Now you can use the functionality of TestNG, convert your code into test cases, and do pass or fail report, pass or fail accordingly. So that's what TestNG is. Right? Now, once the pass and fail is done, our test managers or the client, they want to see something like a reporting part as well. Reporting as in there must be some HTML report that should show how many test cases are getting passed, how many are failed. If I show you one HTML report, how reporting is done, it is done something like this. So if I go to any of my project, let's say if I go over here, then a report looks something like this. See, this will tell you how many test cases are getting passed and the logs for each test cases, clicking on an element, and over here clicking on an element, typing in this element, enter the value as this, all the data being entered, right? These are the information. If any test cases fail, there is no failed test case over here. So if any test cases fail, let's see which one has a failure. No, nothing failed. All these tests are passed. Must be some failed test as well. Let me see, 2014, 2051. This must have some fail. No, it's not. Okay, anyways, so if at times if there is a test failure, then you're going to see a screenshot also get attached to the report. And over here, you should be able to see how many are passed, how many are failed, and who is the automation tester, what is the organization, what is the build number. So this sort of reporting, this is like an interactive report, which we should be generating, and Selenium is not going to generate this report. Selenium task is not to generate the report. So which framework or which project we should be using in order to generate the report? That is what is called as extent reports. So extent reports are your interactive reports, which you integrate with your project, and then you can generate a reporting like this. You can call the classes and methods from this particular project, and you integrate it with your Selenium project and generate the reporting part. So this is nothing. This is again a jar file, right? Then we have log4j. So at times, if you are executing the test and the test execution is taking somewhere around, let's say, 3 to 4 hours to completely execute all the test cases. So for that 3 to 4 hours, you're not going to sit in front of your laptop and you'll be watching each and every action is being performed or not, right? So you're not going to do like that way. So what you want that once the test execution is done, after 4 hours, I want to see each and everything is successfully executed or not. So for that, you will be generating a log file. A log file will be automatically generated, which will gonna have the track of each and every action with the current timestamp. Something like if I show you logging as well over here from this project. So logs is something like this. Something like this. So see, starting the test suite and loading all these files, then browser launch, navigated to this, clicking on this element. And for each and every action, you can see there is a current timestamp, at what time it clicked on this, at what time it entered this value. So based on this, you can make sure that your tests are successfully executed, your test suite is fully executed or not. Right? So that's what the purpose of log4j. And it is again not a task of Selenium to generate logs. So there's another third-party project, which is another jar file that you need to add to your project. So that's what log4j is. And now what happens is once your test execution is done, your reports are generated. Now what you want, those reports should be automatically attached to an email and to be sent to your test manager, test lead, development manager, to whosoever you want to send. It should be automatically done. Because it may happen that you have a regression suite that takes somewhere around like 5 to 6 hours in execution. So what you may gonna do, you may gonna execute that suite in the night time, and you may expect that once the test suite is done, it will gonna take 5 hours. Then automatically an email will be generated. The reports will be attached to the email, and the email should be sent to all the concerned people without you manually creating that email and then attaching the file and then sending. So that task will be automated with the help of another Java project, which is called as Java Mail API, which is nothing, another jar file that you need to add to your project. Similarly, in case you want to do some validation with database, so all your vendors like SQL, MySQL, Oracle, they provide their own APIs to perform JDBC, ODBC connection. So that is done with the help of this JDBC. This is another jar file. Right? For everything that you can do in Java, you will get an API for it. You'll get a jar file for it. You can integrate that thing with your Selenium project. So these are the things that we'll be working on, we'll be looking at it. Right? There's something called as Maven. Now, what is Maven? So Maven is has got a multiple purpose. I mean, we can use it as a dependency management tool, or we can use it as a build tool as well. What dependency is, we're going to take a look at it in some time. But if I show you something like this, if I go back to this project, and you can see there is a batch file over here. If I just double click on this batch file, you're going to see that it is scanning the project, compiling all the files, and now it's going to run my test suite. And see, launching the Chrome browser, and see executing the test. So all set of test data is actually read from Excel sheet, and then the testing done. And for this, see, I have not opened up Eclipse, right? I have not opened up Eclipse. I have not looked at any code. I just double clicked on this batch file, and the entire classes were compiled and executed. Right? And even the reports are also updated. Reports are also generated. If you look over here, we may gonna see the latest report from today is 21, right? So this is 21/11/20. This is the recent report that is generated. This is the new report which is just generated, right? Without opening Eclipse. So this thing, the complete building process is done with the help of a build tool, and that is what is Maven. So Maven is a build tool, plus it's a dependency management tool. Now, what is dependency? Your jar files are dependencies, and how we can manage them. Right now, what we are doing for every process, for every project, we are manually adding this jar file. If we want to work on Selenium, we have added this jar. If we want to work on TestNG, we are adding this jar, right? Now, what Maven is going to do? Maven is going to automate this process as well. So this part, we're going to take a look at it very soon. In today's session itself, I'm going to show you how to automate the process of adding the jar files as well, right? So that is what done with the help of Maven. And now, what is Jenkins? Jenkins is basically a UI. It provides you CI, CD, that is called as continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment. So a lot of things are there. It's a multi-purpose tool. But if I show you a simple purpose of Jenkins, Jenkins looks something like this. So at times it happens. What I did, I executed my test by double clicking on this runner file, the bash file. Now my client is, let's say, sitting on a different part of world. He's in US, I'm in, let's say, India. Now my client, what he wants to execute the same test. So if I give him this batch file, this is not going to work on his machine. Because for this batch file, there has to be the complete code, the complete configuration. He must have Java, must have Eclipse, must have all the Selenium jars. Everything should be configured on his machine. But client is not a technical person. He'll not be able to understand all this stuff. But he still wants to do the execution and want to see how many test cases are getting passed or how many test cases are getting failed. So in that case, what I'll do, I'll give client a UI, a website where he can log in by entering his user credentials, user and password, and then he's gonna see a button for building, and just he's gonna click that button, and all the test execution will gonna take place. And over there itself, he should be able to see all the reports, how many test cases are getting passed, how many test cases are getting failed. So that task is done with the help of Jenkins. So Jenkins is something like this. If I do java-jar jenkins.var, I'll show you what Jenkins looks like. So most of you might be familiar with Jenkins because Jenkins is not only used by testers, even developers, they use it, DevOps people, they use it. So Jenkins looks something like this. So this is your Jenkins UI. You need to enter username, password, click on sign in. And you can see some of the projects over here. If I click on any one of this, if I, let's say, click on this, you're going to see the project is triggered. And what's going inside the project, if we click on this, we'll see the console output. You can see same thing that we saw in the command prompt is executing over here. And this is going to run the test suite. See, this is the website that is launched. And it's going to search for different cars, the car title. So there are so many test cases in this particular job that I've executed. Let it run. And what happens is once all the test cases are executed, the client can go back to the project and he should be able to see the extent reports over here itself. So this one is recently being generated. Okay, this is getting crashed because none of the report is showing. So that's because there is some flag that we need to set while running the Jenkins services. That flag is basically this. This is how we need to run it. Otherwise, the HTML part will not be shown. So we're going to learn all these things. So let me run it again. Jenkins is fully up and running. If I go back over here, refresh it. So the recent one, yeah, it should actually show like this. So you're gonna see the screenshot of a failure is attached, something like this, right? How many test cases are passed, how many getting failed. So directly on this particular URL, your client should be able to access it, right? He need not to have the entire setup done on his machine. He just gonna log in and click on build, and then he should be able to see the test execution, how many test cases are getting passed, how many are getting failed, and the reporting as well from the same UI. That is what your Jenkins is, right? So let me stop this. Okay, so you can see, again, this is not a task of Selenium, right? Jenkins is another third party, right? So Selenium is not doing all this thing. Selenium task is just to launch a website and perform click, type, and other operations on it. The rest of the things, in case you want to connect to database, you want to send email, you want to generate logs, you want to convert your code to test cases, test suite, you want to like schedule your build with the help of some build tool. So for all these purposes, there are different utilities available, which you integrate and you form up a complete automation project. So these are the things we are going to learn in this course, right? So, but yes, before we start with all these things, the very first thing should be clear is Selenium, how to automate a website using Selenium. So after, let's say, 5-6 sessions, you'll be capable enough that you can automate any website in the world easily, because we'll be learning all those techniques of locating elements over the web using XPath. There's something called as XPath, something called as CSS. We're gonna see how to generate these complex XPath or CSS, how to handle dynamic elements, right? We'll be writing the XPath and CSS locator on our own without using any available tool. There are some tools as well available, which we'll look at it, but we will be we're gonna do a practice that we should not use any tool. By our own itself, we should be able to write a very effective XPath. And once we are good in writing XPath or CSS, there is no element on the web that we cannot handle. And once we are able to handle all the elements, we can automate any website in the world easily. So all these techniques we are going to learn. And then we'll be integrating all those parts, all these utilities in the project, right? So within 5 to 6 days, you should be able to handle all these things. Then these are the major stuff. Like as I said, Selenium is just 25%. So these are the major stuff which will help in building up the framework, right? So framework designing will actually going to start from these things. Okay, so now this is about what all the utilities. We have seen ID is just a record and play. And there is one component called as grid. So what is grid? Can anyone tell me what is grid? Anyone?
I have little idea about grid. Grid can create parallel instances, or I can say session, web browser sessions to execute test cases, automated test cases.
Okay. Okay. How about others? Is grid for parallel test execution?
It is for parallel as well as distributed. We can distribute our test cases on different nodes and browser.
We can distribute test cases to different nodes, different machines. Correct.
Yeah, across different browsers and operating systems.
For parallel instance, see, most of the people are saying parallel. Is grid for, again, I'm asking, is grid for parallel test case execution? Is it true?
No, it's not for parallel. It's for distributed using the node and hub concepts. We have
then who is responsible for running the parallel test?
Yeah, test ng is responsible for, yeah, we have some,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So this is where most of the people get confused, and they say that grid is for parallel test execution, but grid is not for parallel test execution. Parallel or sequential, that is decided by your test ng framework, how to execute the test, whether to execute the test in a parallel mode or a sequential mode, that test ng will decide. Grid task is just to distribute that test on the remote machine. So there is something like a node or a hub architecture where we have one machine and other machines connected to that particular machine. So you can take an example, let's say there are 4 laptops. One laptop, I can make it as a hub. Another 3 laptops, I can make it as node. Now those laptops could be, one could be a Linux machine, one could be a Windows machine, or one could be a Mac machine. On one laptop, there is Chrome running. On another laptop, there is Firefox running. On another laptop, there is IE running. And all my test cases are on one machine, that is the hub machine, and all nodes are connected to the hub. So when I execute my test cases, test ng, if I have configured it for parallel execution, then it will run all the test case parallel. It will send the request to hub, and hub will distribute that code to multiple machines. And you're going to see that same test cases are executed on Windows as well, on Linux as well, on Mac as well, on Firefox as well, on Chrome as well, on Edge or IE as well. So grid basically automates your browser compatibility testing part, right? Because we do this thing manually as well, right? If we have, let's say, 1,000 test cases to execute, and a company says that you need to perform testing on all the major browsers because client can use any browser. So our website should work fine on Chrome as well as Firefox, as well as IE, as well as Edge. So if we do this thing manually, then you can imagine how many resources we have to allocate. We'll ask one person to execute the test case on IE. We'll ask one to execute it on Firefox, one to execute it on Chrome, one to check it on Linux, one to check it on Mac, and one to check it on Windows. And all these resources will be executing the same test cases, right? So they end up spending the entire day in executing those 1,000 test cases. So what grid is going to do? There is no physical resource in grid. So grid is actually going to automate the entire process and will fully execute all the test cases on multiple machines and multiple browsers. So that's what the task of grid, to distribute your test cases to the remote machine. So we're going to take a look at the grid examples as well. And grid 4 is very powerful. So we'll be working on grid 4 itself, with integration of Dockers, virtual machines. So these are the stuff that we'll be looking at, which is a very cool stuff. Once we reach to that grid part, we'll be looking at that particular thing. Right. So ID is for record and play. Grid is for automating your browser compatibility testing part. Initially, when Selenium 1 was started, RC was the coding library. Right. As I said, record and play, we cannot achieve much things. So there has to be things done with the help of a coding part. So initially, when Selenium 1 was launched in the market, there was only one single library that is called as RC. So RC was a coding library, and there was only one major class that point of time, which is called as default Selenium class. So this was the only major class at the time of Selenium 1.0. And all the functionalities were present in a form of a method inside this class. Functionality as in, there is a method called as start, which is responsible for launching a browser. There is a method called as open, which is responsible for navigating to a particular website. There was a method called as click. If you want to click on a button or a link, you need to call this method. There was a method called as type. In case you want to type in any input box, you need to call this method. And so on. There were so many methods, but it was very easy to work on RC. There was only one class. So if you want to call any of these methods to get started with Selenium, what you need to do, you need to create an object of this class. So how we create object? We have seen that default Selenium equal to new default Selenium. That is how we used to work with Selenium RC. And one by one, our task is to call the methods. So Selenium.start. it launches the browser. Then we want to do some navigation, selenium.open, and we navigate to a URL, http google.com. After that, I want to get the title of the page, selenium.get title. Then I want to click on any button, selenium.click. I want to type in the text box, selenium.type. Now I want to close the browser, selenium.close. See how easy it is. So Selenium 1 library was very, very simple. So even if you're not good in coding, you just know how to create an object of a class, how to call method, you should be able to work on Selenium RC very easily. But there were a lot of challenges involved in Selenium RC. Now this is a plain Java code. How this code is communicating with your browser? When if I use this in Eclipse, if I click on run button, then how a browser is getting launched, how the actions are getting performed, what they have written in the architecture of Selenium, how this code is communicating with your browser. What is the mode of communication? For that, we need to understand not the driver. Drivers are in the recent version. It was not there at the time of Selenium 1.0. So when 1 was started, there is something called as Selenium server. Before we run this code, we need to start this Selenium server on our machine. Because till the time we won't start it, you should not be able to run this code. Selenium server is nothing, it's just this jar file. The jar file that we have downloaded, if I go to download, this jar file, this is your Selenium server. And how to start this jar file? You need to go to command prompt, say java-jar, and give the name of the jar file, .jar, press enter. Okay, it's unable to access because the name has got spaces. And you can see, although this is a new one, so it is not going to get started like this, but this was the code, this was the command to start the Selenium server. Right? Before we don't start this server, we'll not be able to execute the code that we have written. This code is not going to run. Now, what is this server? What is the role of this server? If we talk about the architecture of Selenium 1, if you see over here, this is the architecture. So this is your client as in your Java code, the code that you have written. This is your code. This is your client, Eclipse, where you are writing this code. So this code, it sends the request to this server. This is your remote control server. RC is equal to remote control. And then this remote control, it injects JavaScript onto your browsers. So be it IE, be it Firefox, be it Safari, any browser that you want to automate, your Selenium RC, it injects JavaScript on that browser in order to automate your application under test. Application under test as in your website. So whichever website you want to automate, when you are running your Selenium RC code, it injects JavaScript, which is one of the most drawback in this automation tool, because at that point of time, there were many browsers, they support JavaScript and many that they don't support JavaScript. Like IE is a highly secured browser. If you have ever worked on IE, then you must be knowing that we get a lot of JavaScript warnings while we navigate to websites on IE browser, because IE don't allow JavaScript to be injected onto this browser. So JavaScript was one of the major drawback of this architecture. And not only this, as I said, we talk about Selenium RC, that this is the only class. And if you talk about methods, there were limited methods. Methods like 200, not more than 200 methods were there. Means if in case you want to automate anything, you need to find a method for it. Like, let's say I want to click on any link. If click method is not there, how will I perform click? So same way, if I'm automating any test case, I'm doing a lot of permutation combination while writing test cases. For every permutation and combination, you're not going to find that method in default Selenium class. It was a very limited library. So these were all the challenges. One of the major challenge was JavaScript injection. in this architecture. The second major challenge was the limited library. So all these challenges were actually recognized by one person whose name is Simon Stewart. In 2006, he started another project parallel to Selenium RC, which is called as WebDriver. And at that time, he used to work as a lead developer with Google. So even a lot of Google developers have contributed into the building of this WebDriver. And later on, what all challenges that companies have faced. Okay, guys, I can see some questions over here. Okay, the material, sure, I'll gonna forward it to you. I'll forward this documentation as well. Don't worry about it. So after the session, once I'll upload the video, I'll be uploading the documentation to the same portal. I'll share it to you. Don't worry. Right. So I was saying that what all challenges that were faced in Selenium RC, Simon Stewart overcome all those challenges in WebDriver. So one of the challenge was JavaScript injection, right? This JavaScript injection was done with the help of Selenium server. In case of the next version of Selenium, after Selenium 1, it was Selenium 2.0, there was no JavaScript injection in the architecture. They have removed JavaScript injection completely. And if there is no JavaScript injection, there is no need to start Selenium server. So that is one change they did in the architecture. The other change they did, like in RC, there is only one class called as default Selenium. In case of WebDriver, for every browser support, they have created a different class. If in case you want to work on Chrome, there's a class called as Chrome driver. If you want to work on Firefox, there's a class called as Firefox driver. For IE, there is Internet Explorer driver. Not only this, they have created huge collection of classes, each to support every feasible functionality on a web. You may gonna see a class over here. If you want to see what all classes are there, again, go to selenium.dev and go to download and go over here, click on API docs. Although this is the latest one, 4.0, but most of the classes were there in Selenium 2 library as well. This Chrome driver, Firefox driver, see, it's a huge collection of classes. All these classes, all these by class and all these classes are actually coming from Selenium 2, and then they were in Selenium 3 as well, and now they're in Selenium 4 as well. Just the little change in architecture took place between 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 that we will be understanding with the help of example. Right? So when Selenium 2, when WebDriver was stable, then what they did, they merged Selenium RC and WebDriver into one project, and they have given the release name as Selenium 2.0, which is a combination of IDE, RC, WebDriver, and Grid. Right? Because many companies were working on RC at that point of time. Many projects were automated. Now, all of a sudden, they have launched WebDriver and they want everyone to move to WebDriver and stop using RC. So all of a sudden, this cannot happen, right? So what they did in 2.0, they have kept RC as well. In 2.0, they have kept WebDriver as well. So using the Selenium 2.0 API, the jar file, you can work on RC as well as WebDriver. But what they did, this RC went up to 2.44 release. And after that, it got deprecated. Means you can still use it, but if there are any bugs or issues gonna come, they are not going to fix it. Their developer are not going to fix it. That is what deprecation means. So in 2.44, it got deprecated. And then later on, when Selenium 3 came into the market, this RC was completely removed. And now we only have WebDriver. So we have IDE, we have WebDriver, we have Grid. And in Selenium 4 as well, we have IDE, we have WebDriver, we have Grid. So what is the difference in 3 and 4 architecture? 2 and 3 architecture was almost same, right? The communication, if I talk about like there is no RC server, then what is the mode of communication? How the code is interacting with the browser? I've written a code over here. Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver. How this code is communicating with the browser? What is the mode of communication? So if I show you the architecture of Selenium 2 or Selenium 3, so if you remember, I added something like this Chrome driver exe yesterday, right? And I then told you why I've added this. But if I don't add this, and if I run this, then the code is not going to run, right? If I remove this, if I go to build path, if I delete it, okay, this there are some sessions already running, so it will not be deleted. I need to kill those sessions from the task manager first. Wherever you see Chrome driver, you need to end the task. So these sessions are maintained if you don't use driver.quit. So quit is going to kill this session. Right now, if I delete it, if I say delete, click on OK. And now if I run this code, you're going to see this code will not work. And it is going to complain you that the path to driver executable must be set by WebDriver Chrome.driver system property. So you need to have this Chrome driver executable file available in case you want to run this code. Without Chrome driver, it is not going to work. So what is this Chrome driver? This is what the mode of communication. This code is not directly communicating with your browser. This code is sending the request to this Chrome driver file, and this Chrome driver file is executing the task on your browser. And who provides this Chrome driver file? This is not provided by Selenium. This is provided by the browser vendor. So the owner of Chrome is Google. So Google is the one who provides you this Chrome driver.exe file. If you go to selenium.dev, you're going to see over here selenium.dev. And if you go to download, so I downloaded this file from here. See, platform supported by Selenium. See, all the major browsers. If I click on Chrome, if I go over here, it is going to take me to the Chrome driver page, the Chromium project, which is supported by Google itself. If I want to work on Firefox, then the Firefox driver is provided by Mozilla. So Mozilla provides this. If I go to, let's say, Edge, then the Edge is provided by Microsoft. So Microsoft is implementing and maintaining the Microsoft Edge WebDriver. So Microsoft is implementing that. Microsoft is going to provide you that Edge driver file so that your WebDriver code can communicate with the Edge browser. So that is how the interaction takes place. If you take a look at the architecture for Selenium 2 or Selenium 3, this was the architecture. So here is your Selenium language binding. Let's say you're working on Java or you're working on C#. Now, when you execute the code, your code interacts with this browser drivers with the help of something called as JSON wire protocol. So although this is the architecture, I mean, you may not know what is JSON wire, what is HTTP. In case you have ever done API testing manually as well, then you must be familiar with something called as a get call, a post call, a put call, a delete call. In case you're not familiar with it, don't worry about it, because once you study the API testing part, you will be clear with all this. But this is in the architecture. You need not to do anything with the coding part. When you are running the code, you might not be able to see how the communication is taking place. But in case you want to understand how these things are happening, you need to understand the architecture of it, right? So Selenium sends the request with the help of JSON wire protocol, which is nothing, which is REST API. Over the HTTP, it sends the request to your browser vendor drivers, and these drivers, they perform the communication on the real browser, the actions on the real browser. So Selenium directly is not communicating to the real browser. This JSON wire protocol is the mode of communication with the driver, and then the drivers are executing the test on the real browser. So this is up till Selenium 2 and Selenium 3. In case of Selenium 4, there is no JSON wire protocol. If you go down, this is the architecture of Selenium 4. Selenium 4 is fully W3C compliance. So it's following the W3C compliance. All your browser vendors, all these drivers are fully W3C compliant. And Selenium 2.0 was not a part of W3C at that point of time. W3C is a community which maintains all the coding standards, everything, all your browsers, they maintain the same thing. The library is fully W3C compliant. So now what they did, they have removed the JSON wire protocol, which was the previous mode of communication. Now Selenium 4 is fully W3C compliant. So these classes are directly communicating with your browser drivers, and browser drivers are directly communicating with your browsers. So this is a direct communication, due to which there's more stability. The projects are more stable. The execution is more stable. Earlier, it was like first the request is encoded and decoded with the help of JSON wire protocol and then being sent to the browser. Now there is no encoding and decoding done. So now the requests are directly sent to the browser driver and browser driver directly executed on the browser. So that is the reason where while you're executing this code, you need to have this browser driver available in your project. So you need to keep that browser executable. There are a couple of ways how you can keep it. You can either directly copy it to your project, or you can set some path to your code over here. I'll show you how we can do that thing as well. Or you can automate this process as well, so that the browser executable will automatically gonna get downloaded. We need not to worry about that browser executable. But that driver is required. Without that driver, the code is not going to communicate with the browser. So that's what the architecture of Selenium 3 and 4 is. So there's a question for different browser. Do we have to install different WebDriver? See, WebDriver is just your classes, right? You need to get that browser executable. For every browser, the browser vendors, they provide these executable files. So if you're working on Chrome, you need to get it from the Google. If you're working on Firefox, you need to get it from Mozilla. And the best part is you need not to navigate to different websites. All these are provided at one single link itself. You just need to go to this download page and you can download it from here. But again, as I said, we'll not be worried about manually downloading these executable files. We're going to automate this entire process as well, so that everything should be automatically handled. So now we are going to see that automation part. So the benefit of removing JSON wire protocol is that what happens with the JSON wire protocol, earlier the request that your client is sending. Let me go back over here. So earlier, let's say you are writing a Java code. That code is converted into, encoded into some JSON wire protocol over HTTP request. So if you look for this JSON wire protocol, first I'll show you what this JSON wire protocol is, then it will be more clear to you. So JSON wire protocol. I know this could be a little heavy topic initially for the new people, but don't worry about it. And sometime once you start with Selenium, should be able to understand it. So if you go down, you're gonna see these HTTP requests. See, so what we did, we have called a method driver.get, and what it is doing, it is navigating to a website. Behind this driver.get, you're gonna see that when you call this driver.get, it sends a get request. It sends a post request with the session ID and the URL, and then it navigates to that particular URL. So it actually, the request is encoded with the help of this JSON wire protocol. So when the request is sent, it is encoded and then it is sent to your browser driver. And then browser driver decodes it and executes it on a real browser. So JSON wire protocol task is to encode and decode it. That's it. The request in a form of HTTP. I mean, the request is sent in a form of a HTTP. Now there is no more JSON wire protocol. So the communication between the language binding and the browser driver is a direct communication without using JSON wire protocol with the help of the W3C standards. So these classes are directly communicating with the browser driver because the browser drivers are using the same W3C standards. And then the browser driver are executing the test on that device. So that's what the JSON wire protocol task is, which is no more there in case of WebDriver. So encoding and decoding is no more required. So that's the reason there is more stability while executing the test on the browsers as compared to the previous version. Right? Okay, so let's go back. Where were we? Okay, another question. There must still be some conversion happening from Java to code to the browser. Yeah, I mean, see, browser vendors, they actually provide all these libraries for getting the request when the request is sent from this Java binding. So same request is easily understandable by Firefox because both are following the same W3C standards. Right, internally how the process is happening, for that you need to get into the coding part, and for the coding part, if you click over here, should be able to see the code. Okay, right now the code is not visible because I'm using this Selenium server. So if I use it in a different way using some build tool, we should be able to see the coding part as well. We should be able to see what is written inside the Chrome driver class as well. So that process, let us understand that process first. And let us automate this process. Now, what happens is, let me take one example. Now, initially, let's say I've started with Selenium 1. So initially it was like Selenium 1. Then Selenium 2 came into the market. Then 3 came into the market. Then 4 came into the market, right? And now I've started using Selenium 4. But let's say when I started my automation, I started with Selenium 2 as a web driver, and I've added this 2.0 jar file, and I've written the code. Same code works fine with Selenium 3 as well. When 3 came into the market, I've removed 2.0 jar and I've added this 3.0 jar. Again, when 4 came into the market, without doing any changes in the code, you need not to do any changes in the code. If your automation project is built up using Selenium 3, same project you will work on Selenium 4 as well. You're not going to find any difference in the coding part, right? Although there are little bit deprecation of libraries, classes are there, which will still going to work, but you may going to see a deprecated sign over there. That you can fix it easily. But what happens is, whenever there is a new jar file, you need to update your project with the latest jar file. If you are working on 3 and 4 came into the market, you have to go over here and remove Selenium jar file from this project, the 3.0, and then you need to add the latest 4.0 jar file. This process is something that you need to do it manually. But as I was talking about, that in our project, we don't have one single jar file. In case you want to work on log4j, you want to integrate your project with log4j. So what you will be doing, you'll be adding a log4j jar as well. Let me show you that jar file. Where are other jars? Okay. So this POI is for Excel reading. This MySQL is for MySQL connectivity, right? And other jars I may have added in a different folder. But anyways, if I click on open, you can see these jars are also added. Same way, just one second. Sonia, I request you to please turn off your camera. All right, thank you. So what happens is, like when we are working in project, we don't have one single jar file. We have n number of jar files, right? If we are working on Selenium, if let's say this is tester A working in an organization, and we have added jars like Selenium version, let's start with 3.0. Then I've added POI as a version 5.1. Then I've added log4j as a version 1.2.17. Then I've added Java Mail API as a version, let's say 6.0, something like this. And I have n number of other jars, right? Now, in a project, it's not like only one tester is working. There are other testers as well who are working in the same project and automating different modules, right? So this is like, this is tester B. This is tester C, this is tester D, and so on. So just understand this thing is very, very important, whatever that we are doing right now. So just be focused, tester E and tester G. Right. So if on tester A machine, the Selenium project is there, so all these jars has to be there. Same way on tester B machine as well, same jars will be added, and all these testers are going to have same jar files on their machine, right? So let's say this tester is automating a login window, a login module. Let's call it as a login module. And this tester is automating a user registration page. This tester is automating something like a mailing page, right? This tester is automating accounts page, and so on. So at the end, what all code that is being written, we have to check in that code to centralized repository. So every tester will be checking their code to a centralized repository, right? So same thing is done in case of development as well. Whatever code developers they write, they check into a common repository, which is called as, you must have heard about something called as SVN, or the popular one is GitHub, right? So at the end, everyone has to check in their code. But while checking their code, they are not checking in the jar file. First of all, what is the importance of checking the code? So that it happens that tester A, next day his laptop gets crashed. So the code is not going to go away with the crash. Or maybe let's say tester D, he leaves the organization. So he's not going to take the entire code away with him, right? The code is already checked into a centralized repository. Next time, let's say a tester F joins the company, a new tester joins the company. So he want to get the entire code. So what he will do, he'll take a fresh checkout from the GitHub repository, and he'll gonna get the entire code, and he'll gonna build the code and do the execution, work on the further test cases and automation, right? So that is what the purpose of checking in and checking out the code and maintaining the code in a centralized repository. But when we do checking, we don't check in the jar files. Jar files are never checked. This is because the code that we have written, we can merge the code and form up a single build, the main build, right? But we cannot merge the jar files. The code can be merged, the jar files cannot be merged. The code is in KB, the jar files are in MB. You cannot check in the jar. There is no process for checking in the jar file to a centralized repository. Now, what happens? Let's say Selenium next version came into the market, because Selenium version keeps on changing very frequently. After 3.0, the next version came in the market is 3.1. Then it came 3.2. And finally, it came 4.0. And there were new classes introduced in Selenium 4.0. So as a tester A, what I did, I have removed 3.0 and I've added Selenium 4 in my project. And there were some new classes were there. I have added those classes in my project. But REST team is still using Selenium 3. Only I have started working on Selenium 4, but REST team is still using Selenium 3. So what happens? There were some new classes that I've added in my code. At the end of the day, I'll be checking in my code to GitHub. And REST people also be checking in their code. Next day, when they're going to take a fresh checkout of the code, their code will start showing errors. Why? Because they're going to get the new classes, which is not supported by 3.0, because they were not there in 3.0. They're there in 4.0. So what they're going to do in order to fix the errors, they're going to go to selenium.dev and they'll be downloading the latest Selenium 4.0 jar file, and then their project will going to start working. right? Because all the new classes were there in Selenium 4. So everyone has to manually remove the Selenium 3 jar files from their project and add the latest jar file. But it's not question of one single jar file. Maybe it happens that there's a change in POI version as well. And this tester G, he changes the POI version to 6.0. This tester E, he changes the log4j version to 2.0. This tester D, it changes Java mail to 8.0, and he have added couple more jar files as well in this project. Now, next day, when they're checking in the code, and when they take the fresh checkout of the code, everyone will start facing issues just because that dependency, these things are also called as dependencies. The jars are also called as, your project is dependent on these jars. So these are also called as dependencies. If the versions of these jar files are not going to match on each and every machine, then they'll start facing different issues. And in order to fix that issue, what they need to do, they again need to go to their particular websites, and they need to download these latest jars and remove the old jars. So all this is a manual process. And they end up spending entire day in just fixing up their project. So which is a very expensive thing, right? So the entire process has to be automated so that we should not worry about where these jars are to be downloaded. We need not to go to each and individual website of POI, log4j and search for their jars and then download it and then look for a particular version. So we can automate this entire process of downloading the jar file with the help of a dependency management tool, which is called as Maven. So this is where Maven comes into the picture. Configuring Maven is very simple. So in order to work on Maven, the very first thing you need to have Maven configured globally on your machine. As in, you go to Google and simply search for download Maven. Let's configure it and let's see how Maven is beneficial for it. So go to download Apache Maven, and over here, you can see the latest version is 3.8. You need to download this binary zip archive. Same, whether you are in Windows, Mac, or Linux, you'll be downloading this binary zip file. So once you download it, you unzip it, you get a file something like this. This is Apache Maven. I'm using 3.8.1. You can download the latest one. So open this. You're going to see a folder of Apache Maven. Open this. You'll see a couple of these folders. There is no installable file in Maven. You cannot install Maven. You just need to do some configuration. So Maven is inside this bin package. This is where your Maven is. In order to use Maven globally, you need to do configuration for Maven in your system environment variable, like you did for JDK. In the last session, we have configured environment variable for Java Home. Same thing, we need to do it for Maven as well. Just copy the root path. Copy this path. Maven is inside bin. This is the root path. Just copy this. Type edit. Go to edit the system environment variable. Click on environment variables. System variable. Click on new and give a name as Maven underscore home or MVN underscore home. You can give any name. So normally I've seen people give it like MVN underscore home. This is also Maven home, and paste this path. Click on OK. You'll see the variable created, which is holding the path of your root folder. Go to path variable, edit it, and at the end type percentage MVN underscore home percentage. It will bring the path of the root folder. Maven is inside bin. So just put a backslash over here, save bin. That's it. Like I already did it over here. So I'm not going to redo it. I'll just delete it. Once you're done with it, click on OK, click on OK, click on OK, and Maven is successfully configured. Now open up command prompt, and if you want to see Maven is there or not,
Hello.
I think he's gone.
Yeah,
That's
looks
you.
like.
Rahul, we lost you for some time.
You lost our audio. Okay, let me see. Let me see, guys. Just give me a moment. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right. I'm sorry about that. Okay. So were you able to follow the configuration part of Maven?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So once the Maven is configured, now we will not be creating a Java project like this, right? Although we'll be working on Java project only, but we'll be following some standards that industry follow while they're working in any Java major Java project. So I'm going to close this project now, and the way we'll be creating a new project is by right-clicking, say new. Don't click on Java project, click on project. And here you're going to find Maven. Maven comes inbuilt in Eclipse. If you expand it, you're going to see Maven project. Click on next and check this, create a simple project. Click on next, group ID. Group ID is your domain. Domain like mine is waytoautomation.com. So we give it in reverse order, com.w2a. Artifact ID is your project name. My project is, let's say, Selenium testing. So I'm going to write it like Selenium testing. This is your Java project. Version of my project 0.0.1. I can change it to 1 or 2, whatever I want. And then once I compile my project, there will be a jar file that will be generated automatically, right? Don't worry about these things. You just need to add group ID, artifact ID, that's it. And click on finish. Yeah, Anu, you'll be getting a lot of Selenium material. Don't worry about it. I'll let you know what all things you'll be getting by the end of the session. So this is a Selenium testing project created. Now, the difference you'll find over here, if I open this project, you'll see a small J written in your MX project. That was a simple Java project. If you look over here, you'll find M and J both. That is Maven Java project. If you expand this project, you'll find one SRC folder. If you expand this folder, you'll find 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 SRC are showing over here. And then you are seeing main Java, main resource, test, Java, test resource. What are these? See, these are not 4 source folders. If you look at this American Express project, if I take you to this project, if I take you to the location of this project, you'll see how it works. So if you open this American Express project, there is one SRC folder. Inside this SRC, you have your class, the banking class C, the class that we were doing. Same way, if you go back, you'll see a Selenium testing. This is a Maven project, see Selenium testing. If you expand this, you'll find SRC folder. See, just one SRC is there. If you open it, you'll find main and test. See, SRC, then main, then test. You are seeing main twice, test twice. This is because inside main, you have Java and resources. So there are 2 other folders. Inside main, you have Java and resources. Inside test, you have Java and resources. So what is the need of this main or test? Anything related to development will come inside this main folders. Anything related to development will go inside this main folder. Anything related to testing, it could be unit testing, it could be automation testing, it could be Selenium, it could be rest assured, it could be APM. They're going to come inside these test folders. Anything that is related to Java, the Java file, will come inside SRC test Java. And anything which is not Java, like Excel file, Notepad file, text file, log file, that will go inside resource. So that is how the things are arranged in a bigger project. What development code can be a part of test automation suite? So development code, I mean, development as in your business logic, you can keep over here in the main package. So as a tester as well, we will be using main package, but once we'll be defining our business logic, once business logic is something related to, it may be a little tough to digest for other people, but it is something like if you have worked on page object model, then page objects are something which we keep over here in the main package, your business logic. So that's the reason I've not taken example of business logic, because many people might not able to understand it. So I've taken example of development. If a developer is using this Java Maven project, then he'll be keeping the code for, let's say, creating his software or creating a website in the main package, and all the unit testing that he do perform on that website, he'll gonna keep it inside the test package. So we are not doing unit testing, but we are doing automation testing. So automation code will gonna come inside this SRC test Java package. So inside this, folders, packages are same thing, right? So inside this, here I'm going to create another folder, another package, name it as test cases. And here I can create a class. So I'll right click over here, say new, and create a class. Same like I did earlier, test browser, check the main method, and a class is created. And now we want to get started with Selenium. So how to get started with Selenium? You need to call this class Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver. What do we generally keep in SRC main resources? Anything that is a resource for main Java package will come inside SRC main resources. Right? Normally, as an automation, we'll not be keeping anything inside main resources. We'll be keeping everything inside test resources.
Okay.
Right? So now, Chrome driver class is throwing some error. My project is not able to understand what this Chrome driver is. Why?
Because we haven't given any path or installed any driver for that.
Install driver. We have not added any jar file.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This class is inside Selenium jar. Right? We need to add this jar file in this project, this jar file. So one of the way was right click, go to build path, add external archives, and then add this jar file. But now we are not going to add anything manually. We are going to automate the process of getting these jars. How? Yesterday we have seen either I can add this jar file or I can add these jar files as well. So Selenium, these jars, right? All these jar files, right? But again, these we were adding it manually, but now we need not to add it manually. If you look in this project, that at the end you'll see a file called as pom.xml. This is the heart of your project, your Maven project. Maven runs with the help of this pom.xml file. If you open this file, you'll find a couple of tags over here. See, this is the project that you have created, group ID, artifact ID, and a version of your project. Now your project is dependent on the Selenium project. So what you'll do, you'll add one tag over here, name it as dependencies, like this. And now if I go to Selenium website, where we have downloaded this jar file, I'll go to selenium.dev and I'll go to download. Over here, you'll see latest Selenium version. This is the jar file that we can manually download. But if you go over here, you can see below is where you can find latest Selenium component. You can also find a list of previous release source code and additional information for Maven users. So if you go down, let's see, do we see anything related to Maven over here? They did some changes in the website as well. So let's see, Maven is over here. See Maven information. If you're using Maven, you'll find information here. Click on this and see. It took you to the Maven repository. This is the centralized repository for all your Java projects, all the major Java projects like Selenium, like APM, like Rest Assured, TestNG, Log4j. For every project, you're going to find the jar file on this website, mavenrepository.com. You can either navigate it through selenium.dev or simply go to mavenrepository.com and search for whatever that you want. You want Selenium, click on Selenium, enter Selenium, and you'll see Selenium Java. Open this. You're going to see different releases of Selenium. See, Selenium 2 started somewhere around June 2011. Then Selenium 3 came into the market. 3 was launched in October 2016. And then 4 was officially announced in October 2021. This is basically 13th October 2021 when Selenium 4 was launched in the market. So whichever you want to use 3.14159, click on this and see, you can download the jar file from here as well. But again, when you download the jar file, you again need to manually add it to Eclipse. Instead of downloading the jar file, I'll copy this. This is something called as dependency. I'll copy it and I'll paste it over here. Now you can see this is your project group ID, your project artifact ID, your project version. Now this is Selenium project group ID. Initially, the website was seleniumhq.org, right? So this is what they have written in reverse order, org.seleniumhq.selenium project. Artifact ID is their project name. Selenium Java is the project name. And the version is 3.14159. So we'll keep it inside dependencies. This is one single dependency. Our project is dependent on this. I'll just say Control S, and within few seconds, you're gonna see all the jar files of Selenium 3 are added to the project. Selenium 3 is successfully added. Now you go over here. Now you save it. You should be able to see the errors are gone because we are able to import the package that this class belongs to. So import as in, again, I did it automatically. So you just need to do a mouse over and click on import and it gets added. So otherwise, the shortcut is Control-Shift-O and it gets added. So Chrome driver class is inside these jars, which are automatically added. Now, as I said, we will be using many other jars as well, TestNG, Maven, TestNG, Log4j, Java Mail API. So one by one, we can search it from here. Search for TestNG. You get this TestNG framework for Java. Go over here, copy this dependency, and then go back to Eclipse and paste it here. Do Control S, and you're gonna see that if I open this, see these TestNG jars are added. These are TestNG jars. This is TestNG, right? If you want to use Log4j, simply you need to search for Log4j. And over here, 1.2.17, copy this, paste it here. So one by one, you're just adding dependencies and you'll see the Log4j jar is added. So how fastly the jars are being added? In case you want to switch to a different version of Selenium, you don't want to use 3.14.59. You want to use 4.0, simply say 4.0.0. You'll see in few seconds, you'll find all the jars are changed to Selenium 4. So this is Selenium 4. Within few seconds, all the jars are getting added, right? Yeah, Abhishek, that was just an example. I've shown you 3.14559, but ultimately we'll be using 4.0. But you can see how quickly the jars are changed. So is it like some magic how they are downloaded? So initially, for the very first time, when you start using Maven, automatically these jars will not gonna get added within few seconds. So let's say if I use any version, what Maven actually does is it creates a local repository on your machine. Local repository as in if you go to your user profile, C drive, users, and if you go to your profile and you'll find an M2 folder, this is generated by Maven. When you configure Maven, you'll find this folder. If you open this, you'll find a repository. If you open this, you'll find so many projects over here. Selenium is org. Then we have Selenium HQ. Where is Selenium HQ? Selenium HQ, Selenium. and Selenium Java. So see, these all versions are there on my machine. Selenium 4, Selenium 3, these all versions are there on my machine. If I switch in between any of these versions, Maven will first look on my machine, and if it finds that particular version in my machine, it is going to pick the jars from that particular thing. Okay. If it didn't find, then it is going to download from the centralized repository. See, if I talk about one of the version before 3.14, let's see which version was there for Selenium. So over here, and before 3.14, there was 3.13. So 3.13 is not there in my machine. But if I want to use this version, I'll copy this and I'll go to pom.xml file. I'll replace 4.0 with 3.13. Now, if I hit save, now you're going to see immediately it is not going to change 4.0 to 3.13. I mean, the internet is very fast, so it has downloaded 3.13 on the fly. But if you look over here, this 3.13 is recently added. See, this is recently added to the local repository, but it was downloaded, right? It was not there earlier. So if Maven didn't find it in local repository, it is downloading, it downloads from the centralized repository and then put it in your local repository and then map it to your product, right? Similarly, 3.13, if I do 3.12, it is also not there. So I'm going to show you where it is downloading. See, it is downloading from here, from repository Maven. It first downloads it and then it will map to your project. And you can see now they are 3.12, right? So you just need to update your dependency version over here. So if you want to use the latest one, we're simply going to say 4.0.0 and let this complete first. We'll hit save, and in few seconds you're going to see Selenium 4 added over here, right? Okay, so see, this is something that you're on your machine, you need to change the version manually. But what happens when at the end of the day, when you're checking in the code? See, if you look at this, at the end of the day, we need to check in the code to the centralized repository. So we are not going to check in the jar files, but we'll be checking in this pom.xml file. So next day, whosoever take a fresh checkout, he'll get this pom.xml file, and automatically all the jars will gonna get synced on his machine. So he need not to worry about where to download Selenium jar, where to download TestNG jar, where to download POI jar, which version to download and update. He'll just gonna add this project. He'll get the pom.xml file. Automatically, all the jars will be downloaded. So even if I give you this project, at the end of the day, let's say I shared you the code. I'm going to share the complete project. Once you add this project in your Eclipse, once you import it in your Eclipse, you'll find that automatically all the jars are getting downloaded and will be added to your Maven dependencies over here. So you need not to worry about the jar files. So this process is automated, right? Now, the next major thing. The next major thing is your browser executable file. Like we have added Chrome driver exe, right? For Firefox, we have Gecko driver exe. So for Chrome, we have Chrome driver exe. In case you want to run your test on Chrome, you need this file. For Firefox, you need Gecko driver.exe. For Edge, you need Edge driver.exe. So every time you need to download this file manually. And the Chrome driver exe that I've downloaded works on the version let's say 79, which is the current version of Chrome browser on my machine. If you know, Chrome updates itself automatically. Yesterday, I have added one Chrome driver exe file, which was of 60 version, but my browser is 79 version now. So I need to again go to the website and I need to download the latest Chrome driver exe. So it happens very frequently. Very frequently, you will see that the Chrome versions are also getting updated. So if your tests are not working, you need to make sure you download the latest exe file. But this is again a hectic thing, right? Every time we need to sync the browser executables. Next time again Firefox is updated, then again we need to download Gecko driver. Edge is updated, again we need to download Edge driver. So we should be automating this process as well. We can automate downloading of these executable files with the help of something, a new library, although it's not new, but there's something called as WebDriver Manager library. So see, WebDriver Manager, automated driver management and Docker builder for Selenium WebDriver. So what this WebDriver Manager is, if you go over here, you get this dependency of WebDriver Manager. You just need to add this in your project. WebDriver Manager, add it. Now, what this WebDriver Manager is going to do, in case we are working on Chrome, we simply need to add one line over here, WebDriver Manager dot Chrome driver dot setup. That's it. And run this. See, I've not added any Chrome exe in my project. There is no Chrome exe added over here as well in my project. I just added this statement. And if I run this, you're going to see that within few seconds, the Chrome browser is going to launch. Right? No Chrome driver exe. No need to add it manually. If you want to work on Firefox, change this to Firefox. Firefox driver equal to new Firefox driver. And instead of this Chrome driver.setup, you'll say Firefox driver.setup. That's it. No need to download Gecko driver exe from the website. Automatically, this is going to do the stuff, but right now there is some issue. Okay, there is some issue in Firefox on my machine. So this I need to get it fixed. I may need to uninstall Firefox and then reinstall it. So this I'll fix it, and I'll tell you how, like, what was the root cause. So instead of Firefox, let's try it for Edge. Edge driver. Okay, but is it storing it internally somehow? Yes, it is storing it. So I'll show you the location where the files are getting downloaded. Let's do it for Edge first. Edge. If you try the same step for Firefox, it should work fine on your machine. On my machine, I just, the Firefox got corrupt, so that's the reason. If I run it again, you're going to see this time you'll find Edge browser will gonna launch. See, Edge browser is launching. And rest of the code will work the same way. In case you want to navigate to a particular website, you simply need to do driver.get and go to the website http waytoautomation.com. Just save it. And you're going to see it navigated to waytoautomation.com. No, WebDriver Manager is a free project. It's not costing to the companies. It's an open source library. Right? But yes, the executable files are getting downloaded, right? It's not like there is no need for that executable file now. Executable file is getting downloaded to your Maven local repository. Automatically, this library is downloading it and mapping it to your project. If you want to see where it is getting downloaded, you need to go to the same M2 repository, and somewhere here you'll find the web driver, and you can see the Chrome driver, Windows 32, and you can see these files added over here, right? These exes are being downloaded and added over here. This is how it is working. Right, so it adds to your local repository. You need not to manually download it now. You just need to add this statement, one single statement, by adding this dependency, WebDriver Manager. That's it, and it should work automatically. So that's how, that is what the role of Maven. So we have seen Maven first as a build tool, where I've shown you when I double clicked on the batch file, and it executed like the entire test without using Eclipse. right? So one of the tasks is to like build the project. The second task is to manage the dependency. So manage the dependency and automate this entire process. Now we need not to manually download each and every single jar file, or we need not to add the Chrome driver, exe, Gecko driver, or Edge driver manually. And we just need to add this in a form of a Maven dependency and then use the project as it is. So it's the same Java project, just that this is more like a standard way of doing it. Companies are following Maven itself. There are some companies who are also following Gradle. Gradle is basically a wrapper over Maven itself, but ultimately the background is Maven only. So everyone, even your Selenium, even all the major projects, they follow the Maven architecture. So we'll be using the Maven project itself, right? Okay, so there's a mechanism for clearing the old exe. I'm not sure. I mean, it automatically clears the old exe because it maintains everything in your local repository. So I'll check if there is any code which can clear out the old files as well. Then I'll let you know about it. All right. So yeah, that is pretty much it for today. I guess we should not start with any coding part today because there are many people who are new and they want to first learn the Java part. So Java classes are going to start from this batch will be continued from next weekend itself, same time. For the Java part, it will be at 8 p.m. For the WebDriver part, we're gonna start it at 8:30 because there are some students in US who specifically asked me to move a batch a little around 8:30 because there's a change in timings in US due to daylight saving, I guess. So 8 is something like 6 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. over there. So we're going to start the WebDriver from 8:30. So, and the Java part will be starting from 8 o'clock, same time from the next weekend. Right. So the batch will be
Rahul,
continued. Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Is it same batch or two different batches? For
See,
Java and
this batch is right now it's the combination of the people who have already completed the Java, and there are many new people who are taking this as a demo session, the first 2 demo sessions, and now they'll be starting with the course. So they'll first gonna go through the Java part. So this batch, for the new people, there's a different Java instructor who will be taking your core Java classes. And all the Selenium sessions will be taken by me. Selenium, framework designing, all the utilities that we talk about, Maven, Jenkins, Log4j, all this I myself will be covering. Just that you are getting a dedicated training on core Java before you move on to Selenium. First, your core Java base will be built up, and then you will be learning Selenium. So that Java part is going to start at 8 p.m. from next weekend. And this batch will be continued as it is from 8:30. Which is like half an hour late from where we started.
Okay, so I should join the same meeting from 8 o'clock, right? If I want to do Java and then WebDriver.
Yeah, for both the sessions, I'll be sending out the new meeting invites. These meeting invites were for the first 2 sessions only. Those were the demo sessions. From the next weekend, you'll be receiving a new meeting invite, one for Java and one for Selenium. So people who have completed Java can join in the Selenium part, and people who want to start from scratch will be joining with the Java meeting invites. Right, so I'll be sending out all the details on your email ID.
Okay. Rahul, I have 2 doubts. Can you please repeat? I want to make build management part more clear. Exactly, like Maven is a build management tool. So what it means?
See, building part we have not seen as of now. Building part, we have just configured Maven so that we can manage the dependencies. Building part we're going to see it later on once we integrate Maven with Jenkins. Then we are not going to use Eclipse to run our code, right? Then we need something because right now when we are running from here, Eclipse is doing everything in the background. It is converting your Java file into .class file and then executing it. So When we are not using Eclipse, if you want to do the same process through command prompt, we can do it with the help of some build tool. So Maven is that particular build tool.
Okay, dependency part is clear. And another doubt I'm not very much clear, like what files come under source being Java.
Source main Java, all your development related tasks or anything that contains your business logic, that is not your test case, will come inside the main Java part. So when we start with the framework designing part, we'll be writing some the core of the framework as well, which will be like that's what I mean. In case you are familiar with what page objects are, so page objects will be keeping it over here. So your business logic will gonna come over here, and the test case will be maintained in the test Java.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yes, Rupakshi, all these are frameworks. Your Selenium is a framework, your TestNG is a framework. So all these are frameworks. Framework is nothing, it's just collection of a pre-built project, which you are importing it in any project, and then you're accessing the classes and interface which are already built.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Rahul.
Sure. Chrome driver exe is not a server. It's just the exe file. You can call it as a server because if you're treating this code as a client, then Chrome driver is a server for this client. This is a client, the coding part. This sends the request to the server. That is Chrome driver exe. But there is no need to start that server or that services. That is automatically handled at the background. Eclipse is a client, yes.
Rahul, would there be any communication group be available?
Yes. We'll be creating a WhatsApp group for this WebDriver batch. The group is already created. For the Java batch, we'll be creating a new WhatsApp group. So I'll be sharing it with you. Like I'll be creating it in a day or two, and then I'm gonna send it to your email IDs.
So for the WebDriver, do we need to join the old group, is it, or can we continue there?
Yeah, I have already renamed it. The WebDriver one is like the Selenium November batch. So I've already renamed it. All the meeting invites and communication will be done in that group.
All right, thank you.
Rahul, one question regarding. So do we have any C# with Selenium classes coming soon?
C#, yeah, I know. I mean, I've been getting this request from a long time. So I am in a search for a good instructor for C#. Once I get that, we'll definitely gonna like start a batch soon on C# as well. Selenium is C#.
Thank you, Rahul. Yep.
Sure.
Rahul, I am just configuring Maven. What would be the group ID in our case?
Group ID, if you again look over here, group ID is nothing. It's just you can mention anything over here. This is basically keep your domain. Let's say if you talk about google.com, the group ID is com.google, or they can integrate the project name as well. So com.google.chrome, and then the artifact ID is, let's say, Chrome Java. Same way, if you talk about TestNG, testng.org is a website. TestNG is their project. So that is artifact ID. And this is the version.
Okay. But while configuring, you had mentioned that com.way-to-automation, right, in your case?
Yeah, I have mentioned com.w2a, com.way-to-automation. So it's in reverse. It's written in reverse order.
Yeah, but in our case, com dot should be, is it mandatory to write a com dot?
It's not mandatory. You can write anything, but this is a standard that we should follow. If let's say I'm working in IBM, I'll be writing it like com.ibm.
Okay. Okay, right. Thanks.
Rahul, I want to know the limitations of ID, because actually what I understand, ID is recorded and we can play the script. So it's quite easy to automate the website testing.
See,
But
when you're working with IDE, you cannot use Java Mail API. You cannot use database integration. You cannot use Log4j. You cannot use Jenkins, right? A lot of things which you cannot use with IDE. So it's best for record and play only. If you have a larger website to automate, maintaining test cases in ID is little tricky part. It's very complex.
Okay.
That's the
One more
reason.
doubt. So what was the architecture behind ID? Was ID was also using server like RC? I am asking about Selenium 1.0 and Selenium 2.0 till WebDriver was not introduced. So what was the architecture behind ID?
The
How it was?
IDE is directly sitting on the browser. It's a browser plugin itself. So that's the reason it is directly communicating with the browser.
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, Rahul.
Yes.
One quick question. Where can I find this yesterday's and today's recording? You will be sending it
See,
in the WhatsApp group?
Yesterday recording is just now processed. See this, I was processing it and it got processed. So I'll be uploading it in a couple of minutes and I'll be sharing the link with you guys very soon. Otherwise, all the recordings you're gonna find it over here. So if you go to selenium-tutorial.com, you need to navigate to your course, go to all courses, and you're going to find it over here in Selenium online training. And here let's say if you click on any one of this, you'll find a view, something like this. Just go to the end. So this batch was done with the Java sessions. So Selenium will be added from here. Rest for the new batch, for the November batch, which is going to start with Java, I'll be adding a new section over here. We're going to upload the Java sessions from here, right? So today's and yesterday's session, you're going to find it over here as day 14 and 15.
Thanks, Rahul.
All right, sure. Yes, Prasad, this is taken by a different instructor. So he is, again, he's working as an automation lead, worked with different automation tools like Selenium and REST APIs. And he is taking the core Java sessions from long time for us. So he'll be just taking the core Java part and like whatever that you're going to learn in core Java, the same concepts will be learning in Selenium, and I'll be taking all the Selenium sessions.
So the WebDriver class that you're talking for the September batch, that is going to be at 8:30 p.m. 30 minutes for. Sorry?
Yeah, 8:30 p.m.
So there is a okay. So there is a half an hour overlap here.
Yeah.
Okay, so those pretty much like a going simultaneously.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, I mean, it's like the person who is attending Java cannot attend the Selenium batch. So Selenium will be attending once your Java is done, then automatically that batch will gonna move to the Selenium part.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, anyway, the recordings would be there, so it would be useful.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, REST API new batch is going to start from first week of December. So it was scheduled for last week, but the trainer is getting engaged. So he'll be starting from the first week. Is this a paid course? See, REST API, all the courses that you see in the library will be included in the lifetime membership. You need not to pay anything extra for REST API and for other courses. You just need to enroll one. Yeah.
Now, just one favor, if you don't clash the timings, that will be good.
Timings at the moment, the timings are 6 p.m. India time, 6 to 8.
Oh, great.
The API testing will work. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Rahul.
But okay.
Yeah, it's going to cover Postman, Rest Assured, all the major frameworks. So complete.
No, it will be as per 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. India time.
Yeah, 6 p.m. India time.
Oh, so there will be no batch as per which US people.
Actually, the thing is that we just started JMeter batch in the morning, 10 a.m. and like only 6 p.m. slot is available. So 8 p.m. we are starting with Selenium. So in case you're unable to attend, you can go through the recording of that particular session as
well. Okay, and we can't do this batch over the weekdays.
No, actually, all the trainers are working professionals, so they're available only over the weekends for the live sessions.
All right, thank you.
Rahul, any idea? I mean, sorry to ask this, but any APM batch? I mean, we are asking too much.
APM Java, not at the moment. But the thing is that, I mean, person who knows Selenium, with a little effort, he should be able to work on APM easily. So that's the reason the APM Java batches are less in demand, because APM is just a wrapper over WebDriver. So we are going to cover some configuration part of APM in this batch as well. I'm going to show you how to connect to real device and then execute the test. And then there's a whole big video library that you can easily follow, because whatever that we do in Selenium, we do driver.find element. Same thing we do in APM as well. So if you are good in Java, you're good in Selenium, APM is like within a week.
Recording in progress. Sure. Thanks a lot.
Right. Yeah, for API as well, you need to finish the Java part first, because rest assured is completely the programming part. So if you're not good in Java, you will face issues in the API part. Yes, Sandhya, this is a paid training. I mean, it's like a 3 to 4 months training for Selenium, the complete detailed training. So there's just one-time membership. This is something like a very unique package that you may not see anywhere else in the industry. So it's just like you need to enroll one time for this lifetime membership, and you can attend all the courses that we are conducting. All ongoing courses, all future courses will be free for you for lifetime. Not just this, there's a huge, big video library. So this is the complete list of courses, which is available in video as well. So all these courses will be freely accessible. And any course we launch in future will also be free for you, the lifetime membership.
Rahul, do you have any plans to include security testing part somehow in future, or?
Yeah, in future, we may gonna use it, but we may gonna add something for penetration security testing. But as of now, it is not there in the plan. So let's see if the requirement increases, then we may gonna add something for it. But yes, there are a couple of more courses. I'll be adding it soon to the library. So something related to Karate framework and related to WebDriver IO. So these are a couple of courses which are going to launch soon on the platform.
All right, thank you.
Rahul, is there any chance for contract testing for microservices? I think that is booming up, right?
Yeah, microservices. I have a conversation with the instructor who is taking the API classes. So we may gonna start the microservices as well very soon.
Rahul, regarding API automation using Postman, that also we use Java.
For Postman, we use JavaScript. I mean, Postman is majorly for manual testing, right? We do scripting as well, but like if you want to use automation, then rest assured is the best.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And Rahul, one more question. Just in case, can we have next API batch as per US timings? The new one?
We can plan this for 10 a.m. India time if it works for you.
Yeah,
that will
be fine.
clash with the Selenium batch, right, Rahul?
No, Selenium is at 8 p.m. India time. So 10 a.m.
8:30 you said, right? This Selenium batch?
Yeah, this is 8:30. But the next batch, I mean, not the upcoming batch of API. I'm talking about next batch after that, we can plan it for 10 a.m. so that it should work for the people in US as well.
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Rest assured is best for API automation. Yeah, 10 a.m. Rohit, right now it is JMeter, but till that time, the JMeter batch is going to end.
Thanks, Rahul.
Sure. All right, guys. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the sessions. So I'll hope to see you next weekend. I'll be sharing you all the details over the email. All right. So thanks a lot, guys, for joining in.
Thanks, Rahul.
Thanks, Rahul.
Thanks a lot.